Morning, all the way from the Philippines in the Pangasinan area, San Fabian. I just want to say good morning to everybody out there, and thanks for joining in. Today, I am going to take some scriptures and just kind of just talk about it. I'm new to this vlog thing, so I'm not. I probably will stumble upon my words, but also I'm also new to the scriptures too. So for me to translate it, probably I might be off, but more so I'm just here to create a dialogue. So and actually to understand it more myself, and by vocalizing it, I find that it's. I can comprehend and understand a lot more of the scriptures, and also helps with memorizing some of the scriptures for my own sake as well. So hopefully you will find this insightful as well. So thanks for joining. Today's scriptures I'm going to take is from the Gospel of Matthew. It's one of the first Gospels I'm reading. I did read Gospel of John. But I had a friend tell me to read the Gospel of Matthew, so I started from the beginning with Gospel of Matthew. And one thing that stood out for me was chapter 23 of the Gospel of Matthew, and 5 through 15. I won't read the whole thing just for time's sake, but one thing that struck me there was in chapter 23, 9, he says, "And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven." And I wanted to open up with this scripture because being Catholic, this is a very controversial topic, because in the Catholicism, they call the priest father. So I wanted to touch base with this one because when I read this scripture a few days ago, it really resonated with me because of my Catholicism background, and I am going back to Catholicism to kind of help guide me through my Christian beliefs. So, but again, "And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven." The priest we do call father, and I'm debating about that, because if it's in the scriptures to not call anyone your father except God himself, and yet we tend to have this contradiction in the Catholic Church, it really does become like this tug of war in your head. Well, in my head, being Catholic, at this point, reading the scripture, it has made me still follow Catholicism. I will probably still, go to church, take my kids there in order to give them a sense of who God is. But because reading this scripture, it makes me realize that I don't think I will call the priest, father anymore, because it's going against what the Bible has written. With that being said, what I struggle with is what do I call the priest now? I guess priest would be okay, but if you read further on with the scriptures of, again, Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, he's speaking to the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees are the higher priests, the ones who at that time were doing a lot more. They were looked at as righteous people. They were looked at as like descendants of Moses, so they were able to have this hierarchy of being better than the commoner or the Gentiles. So Jesus is speaking to these Pharisees and saying, "You guys are hypocritical." To these righteous people, and so in this chapter 23, he's speaking to them about the contradictions that they have within themselves. For example, they call the rabbi, they call him rabbi, but what he says to them, what Jesus says to them is that there is only one master, and that's Christ. And then he says, call no man your father. That's because it's the only Father is the one in heaven. He continues to say that there is no master at all in your life. It shouldn't be. It only should be Christ. And I love this statement Jesus says to the Pharisees, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. Now, what that means basically is the ones who put themselves on a pedestal, the one who, again, thinks they are more righteous than others, they will be judged by Jesus when it comes to the judgment day, and they will be abased. Now, I'm not too certain about abased, but let me see. But anyways, but the ones that humble themselves shall be exalted. Now, I know exactly what exalted means. And basically, when it's Judgment Day, the ones who humbled themselves with their learnings of Christ, with their prayers, then Jesus will see that and will exalt them on Judgment Day, as opposed to having them suffer the consequences for being so judgmental on earth towards other people. I love that because it shows that Jesus isn't here to put anybody on the pedestal. In fact, he's trying to say that we are all human, and that none of us are righteous or better or or more informed about Jesus Christ than the next man. That we should live very humbly in life, and that we should continue to understand that there's nobody that will be better than Christ himself or the God himself. And so I love that part, because I think a lot of times in the world we live in on earth, going back to Catholicism, I think sometimes they do put this hierarchy of